Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and this is PowerPop. Today is part 2 of what is now going to be a series looking at the catalog of the Raspberries. Today I'm joined with Ryan Gavalier from Ryan's Vinyl Destination and David Gallagher from Davy's Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. And today we are looking at the Raspberries from 1972. The Raspberries were an American pop band formed in 1970 in Cleveland, Ohio. They had a run of success in the early 70s with their clean-cut public image, short hair, and matching suits. The group's classic lineup consisted of Eric Carmen, Wally Bryson, Jim Bonfanti, and Dave Smalley. Their best-known songs include Go All the Way, Let's Pretend, I Want to Be With You, Tonight, and Overnight Sensation hit record. This is going to be good, so buckle up. Before we get started, let's look at some upcoming and current programming on the channel. Ryan Gavalier is back once again, and so is the next episode in our Cheap Trick series. This time we are looking at 1983's Next Position Please and 1985's Standing on the Edge. If you're familiar with Cheap Trick, well, this is where things start to get interesting. I'll leave it there. Upcoming this week, we've got a panel discussion and review of Big Country, The Crossing. So we're just going to go through this record, kind of dissect it. I have a feeling that this Big Country series may go on, so stay tuned. Also coming up on This is PowerPop is my interview with the legendary power pop band Fuzz Bubble. They have reunited after 22 years and are playing live. Check out the interview soon. Please like, subscribe, you know the thing. Let's get to part 2 of the Raspberries.
And now for the farm report. Egg prices continue to rise, pork bellies are low, and raspberries are fresh.
Lester Bangs from Rolling Stone says,
Like it already.
Go all the way, leap the charts by stapling together stock riffs from The Who, Middle Beetle Mush, and what else? I forget, but it sounded stapled too. It was regurgitated and reprocessed mush. Yum. Broadcasting Magazine said the Raspberries have not only copied a sound, their great appeal lies in their ability to create clean, fresh songs, and that is what makes them like the Beatles.
That's us. Clean, fresh songs like Go All the Way.
There you go. We got a review from Lester Bangs on here.
Mm-hmm. If he's so great, how come he's so dead?
Wasn't he an alcoholic?
Yep.
Well,
No, he was a great writer.
still influential, I guess.
Yeah, he's a brilliant writer. Brilliant writer.
Brilliant. Well, welcome to This is PowerPop. I want to welcome Davy Gallagher and Ryan Gavalier, and we're here for part 2 of the Raspberries episode. So the reason we're doing a part 2, these two gentlemen were supposed to be on part 1, but couldn't make it. So, but they had a lot to say. So, well, and here we are in Grant's Rock Warehouse. We play to, I mean, if someone has something to say, we listen. So we're listening and we're going to dive into it. Who wants to start out with this record? Raspberries, 1972, the first album. Who wants to go first?
I will.
Ryan?
Well, volunteer, why don't you? Jeez Louise. Okay.
Man,
All right.
peer pressure,
So-
maybe.
The Raspberries, 1972. Got my little mini LP over here. Not quite the All That You Can't Leave Behind mini LP, but kind of a mini LP.
With the actual proper album artwork.
Yes, it does. And got cool disc in there. It's part of the Raspberries Classic Album box set, which I highly recommend. Got all 4 albums. It's only like $25. You really can't go wrong. They're all remastered, sound better than ever. There's your plug, guys. But yeah, this album, I absolutely love it. I think this is one of my favorite albums. not just by the band, but just in general. You know, in the past 2 months, just prepping for this episode, knowing that we were going to do it, I've probably listened to it about 50 or 55 times, like a stupid
Holy
amount.
crap.
It's just, I think it's so good. I mean, all the songs on here are top notch. The sequencing is top notch. You have real heartfelt songs. You have really great pop, uplifting tracks. You got some rockers, and you end with a little like pop prog epic. Like, it's awesome. I mean, this album just top notch. I mean, first of all, Eric Carmen, who plays piano and bass on this album. On later albums, he plays guitar, but on this one, he does play bass. And man, does his bass sound good on this album. I was telling Grant, I think it's subtle but really effective. You hear all these cool little lines, him sliding up and down the neck and stuff. Just all these great little melodic bass lines that sound fantastic. You have a great guitar sound, both by Dave Smalley and Wally Bryson. Wally doing the lead and David doing the rhythm. And then, you know, you have Jim on the drums, who's really good drummer as well. I mean, you start off this album with Go All the Way, which is one of the classic pop songs of all time. Or pop rock, I should say, because it's a pretty rocking song. I mean, you had that awesome riff, which kind of, when you open it up, it sounds a little bit like Free, but I think, you know, it's still its own riff, that and then Eric comes in with this voice, that great like raspy type of voice, which he has that raspy voice, and then the really smooth and beautiful voice, which we hear on a lot of the album. But starts off that way, goes into the verse, just this really, really beautiful kind of like Roy Orbison type of tone on this specific song. You don't really hear that on a lot of the other songs, but like that kind of voice that he does on here does sound a little bit like Roy Orbison, and I love Roy Orbison's voice. I think Eric sounds better though.
Well, that's quite a statement.
Yeah, I love Eric. But just classic chorus on here, classic verses. Just, I love in the middle of the song where he goes into that more like yelling voice, and now just rocks so hard. I'm just like, whenever I'm listening to it, I'm just like banging my head to that part. It's a pop song, but it just gets me so happy. And I think that's what I love about this album and about the other albums that we're going to talk about in this series, just how happy they are. I mean, you can't go wrong with music that makes you feel good. So that's enough about that song. I think it's one of the greatest singles by anybody, though. It's amazing. Come Around and See Me is really, really cool. It's more of an acoustic type of song. Kind of has a little bit of a Paul McCartney type of feel to it, but like still it's its own song, though. I mean, got these cool little guitar lines, almost kind of like a Latino feel to those, and they do speak in Spanish a little bit at the end of the song, which I think is a lot of fun. But it's such a catchy song, great chorus and great verse. And if you want me to I'll wait. Just really, really catchy stuff. That's one thing I'll say about this album. Every single song on here, I could just sing those melodies. They're just so well done and so catchy and hooky that you never forget them. Like this, just, yeah, love that song. It's a lot of fun. Then you go to I Saw the Light, which is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard.
Holy crap, yes.
Gosh. And you know,
that is pop. That song is perfection. I'm sorry.
It's my favorite song on the album, by far. I mean, this actually not by far, because there's like 5 songs that could be my favorite at any point, and I think all the songs are really good. But yeah, this song, just beautiful, tender vocal by Eric. Nice higher range there, especially in the chorus. Just gives me chills every time. And I also must mention how brilliant of a writing duo Eric Carmen and Wally Bryson are, because they do the writing for Go All the Way, I Saw the Light, Don't Want to Say Goodbye. So like 3 of the biggest songs on here they wrote together. And then Wally and Eric both have fantastic songs on their own. I think that when people think of the Raspberries, they just think of Eric. And that was initially what I was thinking of. But when I started reading all the credits, I'm like, wow, Wally Bryson's all over this. And it's like brilliant songs. And we'll talk more about him in the future. But a fantastic writing duo and also great at writing solo too. But I Saw the Light, like I said, one of the most beautiful songs. I love at the end when Eric goes into that, whoa, like that awesome falsetto thing there. That just gives me chills every single time. This song just takes me to another world, and I just love it. Rock and Roll Mama is, I'd say probably, I guess if you want to call Go All the Way a rocker, I think it's more pop rock. This is just a straight rocker here, and this is a David Smalley track. He sings it as well. I really like this song a lot. It's kind of got a little bit of like a country rock vibe to it, I guess you could say. I don't know. I just think more like classic rock and roll, but a little bit of a country kind of vibe in it too. I really like David's voice. Obviously, it's not quite as dynamic as Eric, but it works really well for these rocker tracks. He's got a good kind of grit to the voice, but still kind of smooth. Good mid-range voice. Cool riff on here, just a classic rock and roller type of riff. I just think that this song, if it was me listening to it on my own, it wouldn't be like my favorite song. I think it's still a really good song, but I think it works perfectly in the sequencing of the album because you have your huge opener, fun little song, ballad, then you have to have that rocker to switch things up. If it was all ballads, I would be okay because I love the ballads on here, but I think that when you have the rockers like this, it kind of gives the album a little more versatility and also a bit more to offer for different fans. So I really like this track. I think it fits fine. Waiting is another beautiful song. Gorgeous piano on here by Eric. I mean, obviously Eric is a classically trained pianist. He's like a child prodigy, multi-instrumentalist actually. I won't pigeonhole him to just the piano. He's brilliant.
Right.
But brilliant piano on here and a beautiful vocal. I feel like Freddie Mercury heard this vocal and learned a thing or two from him, because this came out in 72, so it was before anything by Queen. And obviously we'll talk about on later albums other bands this band influence because there's a ton of them. But another beautiful track, like I said, Don't Want to Say Goodbye. This song gives me chills every single time. This is one of the best ballads. Oh, I must say that Waiting is a solo Eric Carmen credit too, so we got him alone there. That's his first solo credit on here. Don't Want to Say Goodbye though, just beautiful song. You got great harmonies on this one. Some of the best harmonies on the album. Great orchestration on this one. It just is like so overwhelming, the emotion. It just gives me chills every time. I mean, this one, along with I Saw the Light, and I can't remember, these ones will tear me up from time to time. Like just such beautiful songs. But just and this one just has such a great build to it. Starts off kind of calm. Don't wanna drive your love away. By the time you get to the chorus, don't wanna say goodbye, and you're just like, holy crap, this is beautiful. Like just absolute perfection there. With You in My Life. I love this song. This might be my third favorite song on the album. I really like this one. Behind I Saw the Light and Go All the Way. I think this one's so much fun. It kind of musically reminds me of When I'm 64, but or not When I'm 64. Sorry, Maxwell's Silver Hammer. I was thinking about what they compared it to on the last episode, but
well, I thought it sounded a lot like something off of the Kinks' Face to Face. The
Yeah.
Kinks during that whole era.
I'd say,
But don't forget the
say-
Raspberries like the Kinks too. So
Small
did.
Faces
or
from
Small Faces.
Ogden's Not Gone Flake. It would fit perfectly on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do think it has similarities also to Maxwell's Silver Hammer, that the musically it has
The chord progression's there. Yeah, just the chord progression, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I'd rather listen to this song than Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Because it's beautiful. Another amazing Wally Bryson song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he wrote this one, and Eric just sounds amazing on this song. It's so catchy. With you in my life, that's all I'm thinking of. Like, just such a catchy melody here. I hope you know I never felt this way. Great chorus.
We've never had Ryan sing so much in an episode.
I just
swear to God.
I love this damn album. It's perfection.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, just another amazing song. It's one of my favorites on here. It's just a lot of fun. It's kind of quirky. It's definitely the weirdest song on here.
Mm-hmm.
And just once again, really uplifting. Makes me feel really good, and I like that. Get It Moving is another David Smalley rocker. I think this one's slightly better than Rock and Roll Mama. The way that intro the way that intro kicks in with the riff and then the drums kick in, it's just like, holy shit, this is pretty heavy for this album.
Perfect power pop on that song.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just kicks in, and you just like, it's one of those kind of like 65 miles per hour type of songs. Like you could drive fast when those drums kick in. And once again, David sounds really great on this one. It's a classic track. Then we end with another Eric Carmen solo writing credit. I Can Remember. Holy crap. This is so beautiful. And it's like a 7-minute long pop prog kind of song. So at the end of this album, it was an interesting choice, but I wouldn't have the album end any other way. He gives another really great virtuosic kind of vocal performance. Freddie.
Freddie.
Just so many beautiful notes, perfect melodies on this. But once he goes into that piano solo about like 3 minutes in, I just get chills. It's like in All By Myself. I mean, especially if you watch the live footage of him just playing the piano, it's just like, wow, what an amazing talent.
Mm-hmm.
And like, then I don't know, this song just blows my mind when it goes into that just such a cool little change there. Just he goes into all that stuff. It's just literal perfection. I mean, this is probably my number 4 favorite song on this album. It's beautiful. I mean, everything on this, like I said, is fantastic. It's one of my favorite albums I've heard in recent times. I mean, I had heard it before when I was growing up, but this is the first time I like really dove into it now, because I had listened to more of like side 3 when I was growing up. But the way that this album has captivated me, I didn't completely expect, but I'm so glad that it has, and it's going to be something I'm going to listen to hundreds more times in my life. Yes. I give this a perfect 5 out of 5.
Holy mackerel.
I think that, I think it was the perfect album to start this Power Pop series off with. I'm so glad that we did. It's an absolute masterpiece, and just this band in general. I mean, you're going to hear more 5 stars from me with the Raspberries. I think that these albums are top of the line when it comes to pop. I mean, they're not just a singles band. They make really good albums, and you can't say that about every pop band. I mean, there's a lot of pop bands that'll have 1 or 2 really good songs on an album and a lot of crap. That's not the Raspberries. They deliver with every track. And I'm so proud that I can be in Cleveland, where they're from. I mean, there's not many bands from Ohio that I would consider in my favorites of all time, but the Raspberries are. And so that's just really awesome. And Eric, Wally, David, Jim, thank you for the amazing music. It's made my life a better life to live. So thank you.
5 stars. Holy mackerel. All right. Excellent review, for God's sakes. What was I going to say? I had a thought, but now I lost it. Oh, I was going to say any of those Eric Carmen songs, you really can't go wrong because he was such a talent, such a virtuoso. You could probably throw him anything and he could. I mean, you watch like let's say I've watched like footage, like you've seen him play like well, there's plenty of YouTube videos where he's like doing like promos for like his solo stuff and he's sitting there playing the piano. The freaking guy's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, all that pop stuff would probably have been nothing for him to play.
I know. And I mean, we see that with his solo careers. He has even more intense arrangements on songs and stuff. I mean, just what a talent. And, I think that doesn't get enough credit for how amazing of a musician and how amazing of a vocalist he is. I think people really think of like 3 songs by him, which I happen to love also. But there's so much more to Eric Carmen than
even those 3 songs, though. The single edits are one thing, but then you hear the proper album version of, say,
All by Myself. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Like 6 minutes long. It's got this brilliant classical outro. It's absolutely sensational. Absolutely.
That whole side one of that record's perfection.
Yeah, that opening track, it's almost, I hate saying things are proggy, but it almost sounds like that kind of pop rock, like John Mayall's or something.
Yeah, and I love Brutes Against the Current too. I think that's a fantastic album, which also has Brian Wilson doing backing vocals on it. But
the other thing I wanted to mention is that the only reason he'd switch from bass to guitar because it was just easier to sing than play bass.
I mean, in my band I play bass and I play guitar. I mean, I play bass and I sing. It's not easy. It's way easier to do it with guitar. So I give him credit for being able to pull it off like he did, though, with that first album. So, yeah.
There you go. We got a 5-star review on this one. Mr. Gallagher, what is going on? And let's hear your ranking here.
Well, howdy, friends. Thank you very much for having me.
Nice to have you.
Nice to be had. Excuse you, Ryan. Excuse you.
Nice to be had in the biblical sense.
I'm not quick, I'm sudden. We obviously have here the 2 partnerships. We've got Eric and Wally, who were inside this area together. And then you've got Jim and Dave, who were in the choir together. So a bit like representing today, Big Star, we've got guys who are already experienced in the local bands and local scene and whatnot. They're not just coming together and seeing a studio for the first time.
Right.
And obviously Eric's had so much classical training up the wazoo and could do this kind of stuff in his sleep, but is more interested in pushing the boundaries of what pop songs can be. You will get things like the Beatles comparison, but what happened when the Beatles needed somebody to come up with a classical arrangement? They had to get George Martin in because even Paul McCartney couldn't do that. Eric Carmen can.
That's a good
Eric
point.
Carmen can. I mean, just to go through them, Ryan absolutely nailed it as always, but go all the way. I mean, that's just a classic single by any metric, by absolutely any metric. It is one of the defining singles of 70s pop rock, regardless of whether you are into PowerPop or not. You will know the song. It's been used in Almost Famous. It's been used in Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's an evergreen that still resonates with generations to this day. That terrific distortion on the guitar intro, which sounds like you're heading for a totally different track. It could be like the Stones or Humble Pie or something, but then it completely changes just straight away. That's very emblematic of this album that can just so easily segue into something remarkably different in the blink of an eye. But it never sounds like a juxtaposition or a jarring one. It always sounds that's really smart. That's really interesting how they did that. You get that twanging lead guitar on it, but then it's replaced by that terrific Eddie Carmen vocal, which is, as Ryan said, it's very Orbison-like. It's very crooner-like. It's not like a song that you would, or not like a vocal that you would think would be on a track like this normally, especially with that start. But when he comes in and goes, I never knew how complete love could be. Like he's almost singing, it almost sounds like he's doing a pastiche of a kind of 50s track for a second or two, but then it goes so sincere, and then it's almost not verse, chorus, is it? Because the verse is basically just a line, and then straight into please go all the way, it feels so right. And I love that musically it tells a story as well, because those parts are the tender moments where you get the music being tender as well. And then when he's singing about the when the rock comes back in, before her love, I was cruel and mean. So when he's singing about cruelty and meanness, that's when the song starts getting angry and aggressive again. So it's musical storytelling at the same time, which is absolutely fascinating. And it shows that they were thinking about how to put parts together. And, well, this is telling a story, so let's change the music to accommodate the story. I'm talking about when I was cruel and mean, so that doesn't go with a little ballady part. Let's put in that rock part back in. With that infectious outro as well. And she says, come on, come on.
Come on.
Is it a bit like please, please, mate? I don't care. Like, are we going to sue everybody that's ever lifted the Bo Diddley beat? No. Come around and see me. Oh, wow. Whew. We should mention as well on the album, Eddie Trunk says this is the album that got him into music, didn't he? Me and Ryan were talking about this the other day, so this is you can thank or blame him depending on your opinion of Eddie Trunk, but
Eddie's a big fan. He loves the Raspberries.
That's what I'm saying, and
that was the first band he was ever turned on to.
And I was sharing with Ryan just not long before we came on air an article where Bruce Springsteen in 2006 just went on a praise rant about the Raspberries, saying, if you guys don't know the Raspberries, go out and buy their greatest hits right now. They're absolutely fantastic. For no reason, just that he wanted to praise the Raspberries. And Eddie Carmen wrote a lovely blog thing back in the MySpace days, thanking him. John Lennon was a fan. He was in the studio when they were recording the fourth album. And there's the picture of him with the Raspberries t-shirt. So, if these guys are happy enough, I'm happy enough. Yeah. But yeah, come around and see me. It is a ballad still, but it's a lovely up-tempo one. It has a lovely way of kind of slowing down, but then speeding up the title. If you wanted to wait forever, it's terrific. Simple, infectious stuff. There's great brushwork on the drums as well, which I really like hearing. I like that Spanish bit. It only lasts for about 10 seconds, but that reminds me of bands like the Tremors, where they would do "Here Comes My Baby," and it would always start like you were just halfway through a party. Like they would go straight into just having a rave up with the Yardbirds, now having to rave up with the Tremors, or their what was their other one they did that with? Anyway, the Tremors. Even the Bad Times are good. That's the other one they do that with. It starts with literally the sound of a party and just shouting, and I like that at the end of the track. It makes it just stand out that a little bit more, with kind of cowbell outro. I like that. I Saw the Lights, just PowerPop we're talking about, obviously. Todd Rundgren has the same song title, and his single of I Saw the Light came out the same week as this album. So what a week for PowerPop tracks called I Saw the Light. That was it. And that came out as a 7-inch the same week. Eddie's vocals are unreal. He sounds a bit Andy Fowler, the low light, terrific chorus. Bit Holly's like, and then it's even playful though when he's doing the tender lyrics. There's a knock dun, dun, on the door.
I love that. Yes,
that could be a bit silly, but then it instantly becomes so tender. And your home forevermore. Every time they say they are trying to sell an emotion, I'm buying it. Every single time. I never once think, it doesn't ring true. Where you're just singing a lyric here. Every time Eric's singing something, I'm going, yeah, I'm buying what you're selling here. I totally believe everything you're saying in the story of this song. It does not sound at all like a put on. Everything is done in service of the track. Obviously, terrific piano, some great guitar things as well, which never goes over the top on this record. I love that. It's also restrained for guys that really could let it rip, as you hear in little bursts, but they are more restrained. It's terrific. Rock and Roll Mama. Ryan referenced the sequencing. I think this is where I'd throw this in as well. Is sequenced perfectly, this record. Just when you think, I've had a little bit too much of the feels, they know that, and they say, okay, let's lighten the mood up a little bit here. Let's throw them a bone and just have a rock out. Just on you go, guys. Maybe it is a little bit long at 4.5 minutes, Rock and Roll Mama, but to be honest, the more I listen to it, the more I think, actually, no. If this was the middle track of a Sweet album, a T-Rex album, something like that from this kind of era, where they're doing a rock and roll throwback song, I wouldn't blink twice. So I don't have an issue with it here. The guitar work fits in perfectly. Dave Smalley's got a different voice than Eddie Carmen, obviously. It's lends itself more to that kind of throwback rock sound. I don't think it's as good, but that's a rather high bar to not be as good as Eddie Carmen is,
right?
Whatsoever. So I would never hold that against him. I think it's still in service of the song, fantastic for what he needs it to be. And we'll come to that in later albums as well. And I love the last minute, actually, although I said the tracks maybe it could be trimmed a little bit. I do love it when it gets even heavier towards the end with the instrumental breakdown, and then the harmonies come into the chorus, because the harmonies all over this album, even when they do it just for a word or two. Just gorgeous. It's a perfect earphone album for that kind of thing as well. Waiting. This is the kind of thing that you do hear people say that, this is Eric Carmen schmaltz. And if this is schmaltz, then first of all, I don't really know what that word means, but I know roughly what it means. I obviously know what the definition, but
right.
I don't know the origin. I mean, they mean sugary sweet. They mean treacly. If that's sugary sweet and treacly, then call me a diabetic and put me in a coma, because fantastic stuff. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. The string arrangement with some piano playing that's just absolutely wonderful. It points to, I think this is the track where you can say this is where Eric Carmen's going more in his solo stuff. I think that's quite clearly probably the most proto-Carmen-like track that you'll find. But when you're singing the I've been waiting all my life, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Every single, it's not easy. Like every single bit of it, just, again, it's only 2 minutes, 43 seconds, and he tells you this painfully beautiful story in that time. And the music's telling you the story as well, and the big arrangement, again, is tugging at the heartstrings, but that's fine. If you've got a big enough heart, you can handle these things. Don't want to say goodbye. By goodness, I don't want to say goodbye to that track, because it's 5 minutes long and I could listen to that for an hour. And again, like I've said in a few different shows, I know that because I've listened to it for an hour and repeat a couple of times in the past few weeks. An insanely beautiful song, even by this record standards. This is my favorite track. Don't want to say goodbye. This was the first single from the album, although everybody seems to think that it was Go All the Way. Very complex arrangement. Bit heavier in the piano ballad. All the chords are a bit harder and things. It's not as delicate and as floral as Waiting. It's an upbeat chorus, but with these great strings and seamless harmonies. With the parts that go I'm going to try a little bit harder. Maybe
Yeah,
you'll
I
love
love
me.
that part.
I mean, the whole thing is this terribly sad ballad. And then when he's singing, I'm going to try a little bit harder. It almost sounds like he's trying to convince himself. And he's failing because then he realizes, and maybe you'll love me. He can't even bring himself to say, you will love me. He's saying, maybe you will love me. And the voice steps back down again. So I don't know. There's musical storytelling beyond just what's in the lyrics here, which I absolutely adore. And I think only someone with that kind of musical brain could have come up with some of that. And again, it's Carmen and Bryson is just an insanely wonderful team. Don't want to say goodbye. It's just as delicate as a summer wish. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, wow. With You in My Life, again, to go back to sequencing, this album, at this point, you might worry, okay, maybe things are getting a little bit, and I'm not going to say anything like schmaltzy or treacly or sugary sweet or anything like that, but maybe a little bit emotional by any standards. So you want to throw something in, you think, well, we've already got another rocker coming up, what can we do? Quirk. Something a little bit oddball. Again, something I like the ones that were thrown out there. It does sound like something that that Ray Davis would have put on an early 70s kink records, like
Oh yeah,
Muswell Hillbillies, even. Because it's got the kind of tuba sounds and stuff. That sounds like something that Ray would have had from the like the Salvation band that had in the background of a lot of those tracks in that era on like Everybody's in Showbiz and albums like that. It's terrific. It's kind of music hall stuff, which again, if you want to take that to be Maxwell Silverhammer, that comes from Paul McCartney's background. But in this context, I think it just sounds like quirk and fun for the sake of it, which is just another string to their bow at this point. And I think that's to be celebrated. They're just doing something different. And it's even got that saloon-like piano in the outro, which sounds like something that would come out later than this. It sounds like the outro of Ooh La La by The Faces. You know, the dun, dun,
oh my God, yes.
dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it sounds like that to me. And even on a strange song like this, there's some terrific, gorgeous harmonies. Fantastic. Get it moving. It's only 2.5 minutes. That minute that I'd quite like to take from Rockin' Roll Mama, I'd maybe stick it on here, because it's just like that 12-bar classic rock kind of sound. If Rockin' Roll Mama is a bit more of a throwback rocker, this sounds more like a very contemporary 1972 kind of rocker to me. Really tasty licks, some really great guitar duo stuff going on here. Not in the more obvious like Thin Lizzy kind of way, but just two guys who know what they're doing and complement each other, and it just sounds absolutely terrific. So everyone's in harmony and not just vocally. That's kind of what I love about the Raspberries. I can remember, again, a pop epic, an absolute epic. I'm glad Ryan mentioned the words prog pop, because that's exactly what I've got here. I said, dare I say, a bit progressive, which doesn't always need to mean prog. It just means you're pushing the boundaries of what something can be. There's touches of Brian Wilson, I think, in here as well, like She Knows Me Too Well from Beach Boys Today. There's little bits of Jimmy Webb. There's maybe some Todd Rundgren in there as well, even, but it distinctly sounds Raspberries. That's what's great about it at the end of the day. The multiple movements are a very classical idea, and again, you've got Eric Carmen there, so why not celebrate that kind of thing? Why not do it? When it turns from 3.5 minutes in, when it goes to the piano, turns into exactly the same melody, but a more guitar stringy version of it. And the song goes a bit more upbeat and celebratory, but with the exact same melody and whatnot. It's just absolutely fantastic. It turns almost groovy, which is something we've not had in any of these tracks, really. Jim on the drums is playing some absolutely fantastic stuff. Carmen's singing the I can remember. Just yes, This is just sensational stuff. You can just throw superlatives at this album. Like throwing rotten fruit at the pauper in the village square in the medieval times. That's a terrible allegory, but like that's what it feels like. Just you can look up just wonderful in the dictionary or the thesaurus and just pick up 300 different words for wonderful and just throw them in this album and they'll stick. That's what's great about it too. It's got all these movements and dynamic segues between them, but it turns it into an epic. It doesn't sound like 5 songs stitched together. It doesn't sound like 2 or 3 songs stitched together. It sounds like a classical composer who has come up with a pop melody and then knows how to take that and have variations in a theme, just like a classical piece would. The sum of the whole to make an album, I think, is pop perfection. Power pop perfection, absolutely, but just pop perfection and musical perfection. And to me, I've been toying with 4.5 all week because of Rock and Roll Mama just going a little bit too much. And I've just listened to this album. I mean, Ryan, I think, has outdone me with 55. I think I'm at a mere 49 or something. So I'm going to go 5 out of 5 for the Raspberries.
Holy freaking shit.
Because I think this is just a sensational record that shows uber talented people, that does show that Eric Carmen is one of the best frontman sounds, in the context of 1972, sounds like you're talking Robert Plant and that kind of thing. A different type of frontman, someone who has an idea and the talent to kind of push it forward. And also the band around them are antipatical, so that everybody's saying, yeah, we're a unit here. We know that wouldn't always be the case because Eric's ideas started to get a little bit more advanced and they were like, can we not do a bit more ourselves? But to me, absolute masterpiece, wonderful record, top tier pop by any metric. Just can't beat it. Raspberries debut, 1972 classic, eternal. And to echo Ryan's POV, it has made me laugh, it has made me cry, and I'm so happy it's in my life.
Wow. What a great review. Both of you, for crying out loud. Well, I've already given my review, but let me throw something out. This record came out in July of 72. Mm-hmm. Number 1 record came out in June of 72. Mm-hmm. Now, we all know that the Big Star record totally failed. Mm-hmm. Could it have probably been because, well, for one, it might have been on Stax, poorly distributed. Number 1 record got great reviews. It probably got better reviews than this.
It did, yeah.
But for something, because they're really not that far off. Think about it. They're both doing 1960s Beatlesque pop to some degree. This band, what? Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think they're totally different approaches. Totally.
What do you think? It's more the approach, or do you think it was the marketing and the backing? Because they were actually, if you really think about it, Go All the Way is really, it's reaching back to a different time.
I think
to a certain degree, to the
I can hear
second British invasion.
Do you know? I'll give you that. I can hear parts. Like obviously, they were all inspired by similar things. So they were very inspired. Alex Chilton, not so much. He actually did prefer blues music and did prefer. Chet Atkins was his great hero. But Chris Bell was an absolutely massive Beatles fan, and you hear that in like the
yes.
But to me, the Raspberries, and this isn't to put either one down, but he says sitting here in a Big Star t-shirt, the Raspberries are coming at it from a pop point of view, and Big Star are coming at it from a rock point of view, mostly on that debut, because side B definitely goes to some much more intimate places, but in a very different intimate way than Eric Carmen would, for example. Much more personal, no, I don't want to say much more personal, because this does sound personal to Eric Carmen, but much more intimately personal, if you want to put it that way. I don't think you would get with the Raspberries.
I think that Big Star is a darker album too than this. I think that typically,
I would
I
agree
think
with
that
Mhm.
this album, I don't want to say it's uplifting the whole time, or it's definitely not like fun the whole time. There's some very sentimental moments and very emotional moments.
Yeah.
But I think that lyrically, what both albums are talking about are very, very, very different.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot more pain and grit and anguish in the lyrics of the Big Star album, where this is more like, I don't know, like, let me put it this way. And this is not to put down either album, because I obviously gave this I gave this a 5-star. This is kind of like a teen high school kind of perspective.
Yes.
Big Star is kind of like the depressed early 20s.
Yeah,
Yes,
but look at the song 13.
Right. Yes, but then look
That's a perspective from a kid.
then look at side 2, and you've got Chris singing about sexuality and how he's trying to justify his own existence, and you've got Alex doing some really dark stuff. Alex brings that cynicism that nobody in the Raspberries has. Nobody. From a very young age, Alex was a supremely cynical person. That's why he fit in perfectly to that kind of cult punk role model that he became. Whereas Eric Carmen became Eric Carmen, as we know, and it's just two different sensibilities.
Right.
I think you're right, though. There is a commonality in terms of influences, but I think different from the same bands, but different aspects. Big Star weren't influenced by Maxwell Silverhammer for a second, but they were influenced by other aspects of the Beatles, I'd say, and not terribly much. I'd say Big Star were less influenced by the British invasion, although Chris Bell definitely was. But Alex Chilton always brought a distinctly unique cynicism to proceedings that would be out of place here. And Ryan makes it a brilliant point about this being much more of a celebration of almost entirely young love.
Or young lust, because Go All the Way is all about, well,
but is it though,
going all the way?
Because it's tender and beautiful at the same time. I mean, yeah, they are having sex, but it's never presented as being it's never presented as being over the top or a problem.
Well,
it's
sweet.
It really feels like the difference between making love and having sex is in that track to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before, when I was cruel and mean, maybe that's what it was, but not anymore. And yeah, I think that just like a lot of power pop, similar influences, different approaches, different people, different worldviews, and that's what makes it such a fascinating genre.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is, the Raspberries and Badfinger and Big Star are always mentioned within usually the same sentence. I would agree that, yes, I think the Raspberries much more commercial than anything that's on the Big Star record. Would you agree?
The Big Star album's weird. I mean, it's beautiful, but
I don't know
really
what would be the single off of that.
Probably. I mean, In the Street from the second records was the theme tune to that 70s show and became really successful.
That's on the first.
Cheap Trick.
Cheap Trick covered it.
Yeah, that's on the first one. That's a Chris
on the
Bell
first
song.
Yeah. But the problem is you're talking about distribution at that point, and they just had none. Big Star had none. Ardent Studios were a joke in the industry, and Stax were only interested in Isaac Hayes production-wise at that point. That's all they were pressing. So Big Star never had the chance. Capitol were eager to push. Well, these guys are kind of young and cute, and and we could sell these to teen girls and whatnot. But there's a lot more going on there.
They targeted them to the Tiger Beat crowd.
You can never sell you could never sell side 2 of Big Star's debut album to a 13-year-old girl. Never. Not in a month of Sundays. I mean, you're right. There's sentiments in there like, won't you let me meet you? You know, that stuff's great. But then even before that, you've got the Ballad of El Goodo, which is an anti-war Vietnam song. You know, so like even then, you've already had some cynicism from Alex saying, "Dodge the draft, folks." You know, so I mean, it's quite a different album. To me, it's the Raspberries' older, cynical brother, if anything. Whereas the Raspberries are still at this kind of young love, where every emotion is bursting out of you phase. You know, where the rock is rockier, but the heartbreak is much more heartbreaking.
Oh my God, yes.
Whereas Chris, in some of his quieter moments on that Big Star record, will break your heart in a totally different way. It really sounds like the end of the world for Chris, and in a lot of ways it was. And Alex just, again, always had that cynicism about him. He was a smart arse, and that's why I love Alex Chilton. But, yeah, again, there's no competition. They're both terrific bands, you know, and both have such small catalogues that people can go and listen to everything both bands ever did in less than 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, Raspberries had more of a catalog.
Yeah.
By one record.
But no, Big Star did the 2005 reunion album.
Well, yeah.
I know what you mean with that look there.
But,
yeah.
you know, the original records.
But, you know, it does say Big Star on the cover. So.
Yeah, was Alex Chilton part of that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be damned. I never heard it.
Alex it was called In Space. It's not a bad record, but it's Alex was offered X amount, but if he could get Jodie to join him and the Posies, then he would get X plus blah 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 if he called a Big Star. So he took the money.
At that point, Alex Chilton was all about, you know, about money.
He could have been a lot more commercial if he wanted to right through his career. But we'll come with that in the Big Star stuff because Alex is far too interesting to just talk about in the a quick conversation.
But the fact that the Raspberries, let's look at this for a second. You know, they broke up in 1975, and I think that a lot of the Raspberries material, I think the better material is the later stuff. I know you're giving these records 5 stars. I get it, but I even think that, you know, side 3 or Fresh. I think Fresh is even a stronger album than the first album, me personally.
There's going to be more 5s.
Yes.
They're just different albums.
Yeah. It's
I don't think...
they're all 5s. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll discuss
One
it.
isn't a 5, but we'll talk about that later.
I don't think it's going to be a secret which one it is, probably, because it tends to be...
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Then put it this way. There's going to be no hatred for the Raspberries on this series. There's only going to be absolute gushing. There's going to be plenty of and there's going to be absolutely no so because honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk about it with Ryan and you over the weeks, and I think because we've had even more time because we postponed it from our point of view to really deep dive. It's become.
Well, I think that might make a difference, obviously, yeah.
And may have had that half point on definitely, but yeah. Oh, it's just become a friend. This album, it really has. I take it out with me and, you know, go for tea.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say up front, I love all 4 Raspberries albums. Going into all these, I've been listening through the whole catalog over and over again, but I'm gonna prioritize each album that we're talking about specifically, so I can give it that proper deep dive that I gave this one.
Yep.
Well, the next one we'll do is Fresh, so
It sure is. It's as fresh as a daisy and absolutely gorgeous for it.
And
But
there's some absolutely killer tracks on that
yes,
record.
there are.
Oh, I love it.
We're in
I
for
love it.
we're in for some amazing music. But it's like I was saying, it's more a case of everything that they are setting out to do here. I think they achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that they are attempting, the goals that they've set themselves, they absolutely smash. And when it meets my ears, it goes straight in the carpal tunnel, right down, and hits me straight here every single time. A lot of music hits me here, and that's great. And I love to analyze it and overthink it sometimes. The Raspberries just hit me here every single time. Every single time. And tracks like Rock and Roll Mama, yeah, on its own, I probably wouldn't think that's the be all and end all. But as a palate cleanser, as the sorbet in between two rather spicy dishes in a 5-course Indian meal, I'll take it.
Well, I have to agree that Rock and Roll Mama standing on its own, but the thing is, you've got I Saw the Light, which is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Perfection. I can listen to that song over and over, never get tired of it.
Better than Todd Rundgren's the song of the same name, if you ask me.
Oh, I agree.
Oh boy, that's a hard one there.
And I love
that song too. Yeah, I love Something Anything.
But once you have the brilliance of I Saw the Light and you go down to Rock and Roll Mama, it's a little bit of a, well, can we call it filler? On my original notes,
No.
I mean, Dave Smalley is no Eric Carmen. We've already said that.
Ringo is no Paul or John in the vocals.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And by the way, Dave's 100 times better singer anyway. So,
Yeah, Dave was the lead singer in the choir.
Yeah, and I'm not putting down Ringo, by the way, because like Ringo singing like Act Naturally and stuff, I'll take that. I love Ringo. It don't come in.
Who doesn't love Ringo, for God's sakes?
Ringo,
but I do see your point. I see your point.
Just a bit of diversity, and I think that's what's needed in an album that could be a little bit too. You know me, Grant. I do shed a tear for certain things. And if there was too much of that on this record without that kind of break of, here's just some throwback rock and roll for you to go get a hanky and wipe the tears away and then have a little boogie for a couple of minutes.
Right.
I might have a bit of a problem because my heart might just explode, Grant. It might just explode if there was too much of this.
Hell, that might make a mess.
If there was too much of this wonderful, I saw the likeness and
Well, could you imagine if it was full of that?
Holy that's what I'm saying. So
I mean, Eric Carmen can only write so much stuff.
You need that little change, that little sea change, just to say, and breathe. It's I don't want to say it's filler. I don't want to say it's an intermission. I think it's just, hey, we're going to do something else for a minute, and then get your heartstrings ready because they're getting tugged all over again.
You know what? I just had a thought. I know we're doing the Raspberries, and we'll do the four records. How do you gentlemen feel about looking at like the first Eric Carmen solo album just as a
all day, dude?
Yes.
No. My thought is, of course the Raspberries could use more love, of course, right? Today's day and age.
Absolutely.
But also the Eric Carmen stuff, I'm just throwing it out there. I would like to look at it.
Let's just look at the whole catalog.
Let's look at every Eric Carmen.
5 albums.
It's only got 5, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 5 albums.
Well, I'd like to look at it because no one's looking at it.
Yeah,
dude, I love it. Boats Against Occurrence is awesome. That's such a good record. And so
right. Well, there you go. Well, this series is going for a long time,
and including 2 albums that are self-titled. Who doesn't love it when people do that? So, brilliant. I'm so on board for so much love for the band and then Eric solo, because I think great music is great music, and if it's a bit too over the top and emotional. Well, you know what? I'm over the top and emotional sometimes, so maybe I just like that.
You get touchy-feely. You get a little emotional. I get it.
I do a wee bit.
Oh, don't make me blush. No, I get it. But I would like to look at those records and to throw it out there and get everybody's take on it. Because, like I said, who's looking at that stuff? And this whole channel is all about taking a look at things that people aren't talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all here for it, Grant.
Yes, we'll be there with our knickers in the air, as they say at Tom
All right,
Jones.
well, but so next month we're going to look at the Raspberries Fresh. So
yes, great.
You guys stay on here. We'll pick a date for that.
Okay.
But other than that, we've got 2 5-star reviews today. Who would have thunk?
What? And your score at the time was?
I gave it like a 3 or 3.5.
Now you've had another month or so, or however long it's been.
Well, I've heard this album for 20 years.
But would you revise it now that it's been actively in your mind? Would you revise that score, do you think?
I think that based on your reviews and the way you approached your reviews and the way you looked at it, I don't know if I can give it a 5-star album, because I know there are there are perfect Raspberry albums down the road. I would be comfortable in giving this a 4-star, but the individual tracks that are absolutely brilliant, Go All the Way, I Saw the Light, take any of the Eric Carmen songs. Holy shit.
And with Wally,
I mean, it's just such a okay, Wally right there. But it's such a contrast, because I think Dave Smalley on the future records, he produces some stellar stuff.
Oh yeah,
I
like David Smalley a lot.
Yeah,
I like him on here.
I don't think his stellar stuff is here, but the records we look down the road.
Do you think he said to himself? Do you think he said to himself, "I'm gonna try a little harder"?
I think he probably did.
But
But this is one of those bands where, the first album's great, but they also produce even better stuff down the road. My opinion.
Yeah, and
that's fine.
For a debut, I mean, usually the debut album is the greatest thing on the planet. Yeah. Not necessarily in this band. They get better as they go.
I think
some of the work on
the
4th record, holy shit, it's like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Overnight Sensation.
Yeah, and that's the one John Lennon said was an absolutely terrific record and had the t-shirt up. Yeah.
I know we've lost half the band on that, but we've got other band members to replace that were already playing with Eric before. Different versions.
That's where some people would say that's where Eric's solo career really begins, and there's an argument to be made there, but we can make that argument when we come to it. Right. To me, it comes out under the Raspberries name, so it's a Raspberries album, just like I said about Big Star. This album to me is just perfect for what it needs to be, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, I just think they're different. But
they're different.
They're all basically perfect.
It's going to be exciting to have that discussion. Yes. So anybody, we've got 2 5-star reviews. I'll give it a solid 4. If you see this record, stream it, check it out. This is where PowerPop originated. Well, it's more like Badfinger, but this Go All the Way, you can't argue, was one of the first PowerPop masterpieces on the planet. I highly recommend it. I mean, you really can't go wrong with anything in the catalog, to be honest. But we're going to look at Fresh next month.
And Eric, we love you. We love you, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's genuine, too.
Anyone who makes me feel the way that these the tracks that he plays on, writes, just like Brian Wilson, just like Paul McCartney when he does it. Anybody who can make me feel that way just has my utmost adoration for helping me as a person, emotionally and musically. I just love it to bits. I think Eric Carmen, anybody who wants to just dismiss him as some, is that the guy from the 80s from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack? Yeah, it is. So I
That
check
was
it,
probably more of a paycheck. You know, you got to do what you have to do to survive.
and I'm sure it's been a lovely payday for him. That was a hell of a soundtrack, and bless him for it, because if that's helped him sell some more greatest hits, then other people might have discovered the great stuff that's in his catalog. Because,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way,
Exactly.
Hungry Eyes, still a pretty damn good pop song in my book.
Oh, it's a really good pop song. I mean,
He
he didn't
didn't.
write it.
Who
but
wrote
he-
that? Do you guys know offhand?
I don't
it's
remember their
It's a
names.
third party writer, yeah. So
I mean, it's a
Somebody
great
else.
pop song.
Oh,
I
it's
would
good.
never have known it was Eric Carmen
it doesn't
unless someone told me, because it doesn't have any his trademarks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hey, good for him as he's able to do that, earn some money. It's, you know, I mean, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But thank God that this exists.
Yes.
Oh yeah. It's literally been such a pleasant revisit in my musical life. I've just had so much fun, and I've just been listening to all of his stuff recently on all the Raspberries, and it's made me. It's just good stuff, man. Really, really, really good.
You know what
stuff.
it's almost made me feel like? You know how we've really gushed over those moments on Beach Boys albums where Dennis Wilson really overpowers us with like Forever and stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
Every other track's a Forever on a Raspberries album.
Kinda. It's it's at that level.
It's just, but
because you cannot deny that Forever
it's the
on
belief,
Sunflower was
it's the belief in the lyric and the vocal, where it just always sounds like this person is really pouring their heart out. It does not sound like somebody just singing some lyrics to a pop song. It really sounds like confession. You know, it's gorgeous stuff, and we could just ramble over how awesome this is, to be honest, till the break.
I do have another thought since we're talking. I know we're done, but Pacific Ocean Blue.
Yes.
Part of the Beach Boys series.
Yes.
I'm throwing it out there.
Yes, I'm Bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've got both.
Yeah.
Works for me.
All right. Yeah. By the way, for anybody out there watching, this series is going to continue. More Raspberries to come. We'll do the Eric Carmen solo albums. And on the Beach Boys, we're also doing a Beach Boys series where we just looked at Carl and the Passions. So check that out. And next month, we're doing the MIU album. MIU. Yeah.
I might be MIA for that one.
Well, I looked at. Well,
I'm joking.
I'm putting my 5 stars away for the moment. I don't think I need them for that.
Well, you know, the whole other thing, we're going to hit all the Beach Boys stuff, but we're just kind of jumping around. We're just kind of feeling out different eras. I mean, after the MIU, we might jump to Beach Boys today. I don't know.
I've got an interesting idea for the next one. Actually,
go ahead.
No, I think we should take it off.
We'll save it.
We'll take it offline. All right, gentlemen. So we have 2 5-star reviews. I'm going to go with a 4. I want to thank Davy and Ryan. Wonderful reviews. I mean, I really do love this record. I just know where the band is going to go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Highly recommend it for anybody. Like I said, the Eric Carmen material alone is worth the price of admission.
When it comes to the Raspberries, folks, go all the way.
Go all the way. All right, boys. Good night. Hang on, and we'll get our next date. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, by the way.
Yeah.